Hello the internet, hope you're all well, thanks for stopping by. I'm continuing my look at Top Gear magazine's top 50 driving games of all time. And in this video, I'm looking at number 46, the legendary Stunt Car Racer on Commodore Amiga. Yes, as it says there, this game was programmed and designed by Geoff Crammond. If you know your driving simulators, you'll know all about Geoff Crammond. He came up with Revs, he came up with Formula 1 Grand Prix and Grand Prix 2, 3 and 4. The man is a driving god. Yes, you heard that correct. Richard Hammond may have said it, but it was Geoff Crammond who was the driving god. Stunt Car Racer then, it came out in 1989, it was also known as Stunt Track Racer in the United States. It was published by Microprose, who would also do the Grand Prix simulation series, and while it was most famous on the Atari ST and this, the Commodore Amiga version, it was also ported over to the Commodore 64, Amstrad CPC, the ZX Spectrum and of course MS-DOS 2. The game is a racing simulation, single player only, where you're racing against the AI controlled car. You're racing around on tracks that are elevated off the ground. If you fall off the track, you crash and burn. There was absolutely nothing to stop you sliding off the track, so it was all down to your skill and judgment to keep the car on the track. And let's face it, these tracks weren't particularly wide. Also, you had the AI driver to navigate around, and then you had these jumps. Whichever direction of travel you left these jumps at, you were going to be going off in that direction, which not necessarily was where the track was. Yes, this game was incredibly difficult when you first picked it up. You had to deal with something that at the time you didn't generally have to deal with, something called physics. Geoff Crammond, he was a stickler for physics and incredibly good at implementing them. I mean, this could be seen in his Grand Prix simulation series, but this was an early sign of how good he was at it. Yeah, back in the late 80s, no one was really bothered about true simulation. I mean, Codemasters used to put the word simulation on pretty much all of the games they ever made. Shopping Trolley Simulator, anyone? But actual true simulation, really, Geoff Crammond was the father of it. He was the grandfather of it. And in this game, he made you feel as though you were actually experiencing weightlessness as you flew over those massive ramps waiting for the ground to come back at you. You held your breath. There was genuine jeopardy, there was cause and effect. You couldn't just launch the car into the sky and expect it to land unscathed. There was genuine consequence to your actions. You had to measure how fast you could go over a jump. You had an energy bar effectively. On the roll cage you can see going across the top of the screen there, that's a crack in the roll bar, and if that crack went all the way across, that was game over. That meant you had to measure your risk versus reward. You couldn't just go flat out all over the place, you had to pick your fights. And the same went for crashing too. You couldn't just go hell for leather all over the place. You had the consequence of losing so much time, the time lost falling to your death, and then the time lost as the car was hoisted unceremoniously back onto the track by the same crane, unseen, that dropped you onto the track in the first place at the start of the race. As if the game wasn't hard enough already, it gave you the option of using boost. This was a limited amount of boost you could deploy each race, signified by the flames coming out of your engine. And while this was a great way of catching up and overtaking the AI driver, it also signified how far off the track you'd fly and how hard you'd spear into the ground. But once you'd mastered the controls and figured out how the physics actually work on the game, you could actually become one with the game, and that was the secret to success in it. You had to become one with the car, one with the track, learn to adapt to the undulations, learn when to deploy the boost and when to land smoothly if you could. Because that was the key, being smooth was fast. The more time you spend in the air, the less time you're actually on the ground accelerating. The object of the single player game was to compete in a league of 12 drivers, 11 AI drivers and yourself. The 12 drivers will be separated into 4 leagues, each comprising of 3 drivers. Those 3 drivers will compete against each other twice, meaning 4 races in each league season. Each league has 2 tracks which you'll drive on twice, and there are 8 tracks in total, getting progressively harder as you move through the leagues. You start in League 4 with the intention of getting up to League 1 and becoming the champion. Each race is held over 3 laps, you get 2 points for coming first and you get 1 point for getting the fastest lap too. Now, while this game was most commonly played in single player mode, it was also possible to play it in 2 player mode as well, by connecting 2 computers via null cable modem. Apparently it was also possible to connect up an Amiga to an Atari ST to play this game in 2-player mode. Stunt Car Racer really was a revolutionary game when it came out in 1989. However, it drew very significant comparisons to another game that came out in the same year, Hard Driving. Both games shared very similar looking 3D graphics, those harsh, severe, jagged shapes of these polygon representations of 3D models. And, well, obviously both had you throwing a high performance car around a racetrack with the willful abandon of an absolute lunatic. Now, although Stunt Car Racer came out a few months after hard driving did, Geoff Crammond always maintained that he wasn't influenced in any way by hard driving, given it only came out a few months before Stunt Car Racer did, and Geoff Crammond had been developing the game for over 3 years. And speaking of long gestation periods, back in April 2003, a long-awaited sequel was announced, Stunt Car Racer Pro. Sadly, we're still waiting for it. So we're just going to have to make do with the original and look back through our rose-tinted glasses, and fair play, it stands up really well. When the game was released, it received widespread critical reviews. Even the Spectrum version, which should have been absolutely terrible given its processing capabilities, scored highly, but it really was on the Amiga and the Atari ST where it found its true home. It really took advantage of the processing powers available to it, which might not look much compared to today's visually beautiful scenarios, but back in the day it had us drooling all over our computer games magazines. You know, if Stunt Car Racer actually has a problem, I think it's down to the success of its creator, Geoff Crammond, because people don't remember Stunt Car Racer as much as they do his other famous games. The Grand Prix simulation games are cited as being the birthplace of modern sim racing, which is so popular these days, but people don't even remember this game exists. So I'm taking this opportunity just to tip my cap towards Stunt Car Racer for what it was and what it helped Geoff Crammond go on to achieve later. So do you remember playing Stunt Car Racer back in the day? Do you still play it as a retro game? If you do, let me know what you think about it in the comments section below. Anyway, I do hope you've enjoyed this video and my little boosted power slide along the circuits of Stunt Car Racer. If you have enjoyed it, do consider a like, a comment and maybe even a subscribe to the channel, and I shall see you on the next video. Take it easy.